Welcome back. About a month ago, we were able to go to the swearing-in ceremony of Sheriff Don Barnes, and I'm lucky enough to have him in our studio today. Well, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you, and thanks for having me back.
Oh, you're welcome. And you know, it's been a while since we've had you on because I know you were busy campaigning.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And it worked, so congratulations again.
Thank you.
And we were able to go to the swearing-in ceremony, and what a great event it was. Tell me what it meant to you.
There was, well, it's a very surreal moment when you go through the process of running for office and then being successful. And the swearing-in ceremony had a lot of special moments that were unique, I think, to me, and I think some people who were there got it. Having Sheriff Brad Gates there to present my badge. He presented my badge to me as a deputy sheriff 30 years ago when I became a peace officer. Mm-hmm. So to present that badge back to my wife to pin, having my wife pin the badge, having Sheriff Sandra Hutchins there and to be able to recognize her. She has tremendous humility, and what she had hoped to do was sneak out the back door with nobody noticing. So as much as she wanted to just ride off into the sunset, I would have the ability to bring her up on stage and recognize her for her 10 years of service. Right. And it was just a real special moment. I think the one thing that was special also, and people I don't think got the message, was the benediction at the end. I had a member of the Muslim community, a member of the Jewish community, and a member of the Black community do a joint benediction. And that was by design because those three groups are the most targeted of hate crime. And I wanted to show that in Orange County we have developed relationships with each of these groups, many others through our Interfaith Council, which I thought was important for us to show those who were there in attendance.
Yes, a very well thought out event. And another thing that I really enjoyed was at the very beginning where you have were they the recruits?
Recruits, yes.
They did a great job. It was very nice.
It is an impressive academy. If you don't know, maybe your viewers don't know, the Orange County Sheriff's Regional Training Academy is probably the most credible academy in the nation. It's a full stress academy, 6.5 months, and if you make it through that academy, you've earned your way into law enforcement. It's instant credibility. Okay. Very proud of it.
Excellent. And then what about at the end? You had the bagpipes.
Yeah, those were actually the Association of Orange County Deputy Sheriffs pipe and band, pipe and drums. And it was special to me. They're new. They've only been in existence for about 2 years, so they've really, I think, developed an expertise. I saw them about 6-8 months ago and mentioned to them that if I were to be successful, if they would be at my event, and of course it all worked out.
Perfect.
I'm very proud of them.
Well, perfect. Well, it seems like you had a good time and it was well run and you were very popular at the end.
Well, thank you.
That's why we're having you on now, because I didn't get anywhere near you at the ceremony. So let's talk about the initiatives that you brought up during the ceremony and what you campaigned on. We can just run from the vigilance and protecting our community all the way through if you want to just kind of touch on those.
Well, sure. I think the vigilance and protecting our community is the core of what we do in public safety, and so to make sure that we protect the public well, but there's also a preventative measure in doing that also, and of course order maintenance, which is the foundation of public safety and law enforcement, to make sure we maintain order, that we develop programs that are geared towards keeping the community safe and making sure that the community is co-producers of their own safety through several initiatives that we have already started and underway, and they're growing out as we speak. So we want to make sure that we develop those. And law enforcement is changing. It's not the same as it was 10 years ago, and it won't be the same 10 years from now as crime changes and the things we face become much more difficult to investigate and prevent.
Right.
For example, we have a cyber crimes unit in the Sheriff's Department that started about 3 years ago, and as you can imagine, it's taken off. You don't have to rob somebody at the ATM anymore. You can steal from the other side of the planet, and you have to be able to investigate those cases in a much more dynamic way than what happened, just a few years ago.
Exactly. All right, and then reducing the prevalence of drugs, which I know that's been happening a lot lately, unfortunately.
This is probably one of my most important initiatives, and I think the public is just now catching on, but for several years there's been a progression of the narcotics trade within that's really impacting the communities that we have an obligation to try to prevent as much as possible. So the opioid crisis is probably the one that people are just now becoming aware of. About 4 years ago, our crime lab was the lab on the West Coast that recognized the first fentanyl case. Fentanyl is an synthetic opioid, that's 50 times more potent than heroin. So to put that in perspective, and this I think the viewers might appreciate, if you had a sugar packet, which is 1 gram, and dumped that sugar packet out onto the table, that would represent 500 lethal doses of fentanyl. So it's very, very toxic and dangerous, and we're seeing overdose rates are doubling every year. We have an naloxone program with the Sheriff's Department started 4 years ago. That's an opioid antagonist. It's like Narcan for people who are overdosing. Every year we're doubling the number of saves, lives that we're saving in the public, but it's becoming progressively worse. The fentanyl used to be clandestine produced, illegally produced in China, and made its way to the East Coast and the West from there.
Wow.
Now it's being produced just south of our border by the cartels. So we're seeing seizures coming up the 5 freeway of multiple kilos of pure fentanyl that are coming up. A 900% increase in 1 year of pure fentanyl coming up. We had over 30 kilos seized in 2018 of fentanyl. That represents about 16 million doses of fentanyl. So it's the new trend. It's here. It's probably not going to go anywhere. And for the 4th year in a row, we've sponsored a bill through Senator Bates to include fentanyl in the same level of enhanced penalties for trafficking fentanyl that cocaine and methamphetamine and heroin has. Right now it's not included. It's much more dangerous, and it's not included with the same penalties. We want to make sure that we hold people accountable.
Oh yeah, make sure you keep us posted on that one for sure. Now with all of this increased drug use and coming over the border, obviously you're going to have to increase your resources for the crime labs. So how would you be doing that?
Well, everything's changing as we go forward. So the crime lab, we have new equipment that we're always trying to stay on top of. We just bought several new pieces that allows our analysts to take one sample, and it could be one of hundreds of different substances. It used to be they had to piecemeal those testing out, and now they get those, they can confirm what substances are almost immediately. The biggest challenge we're facing right now in a crime lab is actually DUI marijuana. Because of the toxicity level that people might have in their blood system. So we have to look at the nanometer per deciliter. It's like blood alcohol, but for THC. And come up with a system that we can validate that to hold people accountable.
Oh, that's good.
Right now in the fatality deaths that we're seeing through our crime lab, this may be hard for people to believe. A decade ago it was always alcohol. Well, 6 out of 10 cases have a substance other than alcohol in their blood, and 4 out of 10 have a multi-poly drug combo. That means multiple drugs in their system that's leading to the impairment and leading to death. So staying on top of all those are very, very difficult, and our crime lab, internationally accredited crime lab, will always be, I think, 1 or 2 steps ahead of everybody as we lead the way.
Well, good to know.
Yes.
Good job. Thanks for doing that for us. All right, so crime prevention specific to Laguna Woods Village, what would you say about it?
Well, I think first of all, you have a great community here because everybody's actively engaged. I wish the rest of the Orange County community was engaged as Laguna Woods Village is. So the first thing is make sure that you get engaged, that you know what's going on. If you see something, say something. Make the phone call if you see something that might be criminal, and make us aware of it so we can respond and take care of it. But the greatest thing that your residents can do is to be preventative. Do not prevent or not present the opportunity for crime to occur. And there's several key things that can happen in this community, I believe are happening. First, don't leave items of value in your car. That's probably the most obvious one. If you leave your purse or a laptop or a phone, you're just inviting somebody to breach the car, break into the car, and take those items from you. It could be as simple as just loose change in a cup holder. Might invite somebody into your car. Always lock your car, whether you're there during the day or at night, because people will go through unlocked cars and rummage through and look for items of value. Make sure you leave if you have a garage, leave your garage door closed. Make sure you lock your door. Don't present the opportunity for people to commit crime. And most importantly to this community is don't subject yourself to a lot of the fraud and scams that are happening that target, unfortunately, the elderly. They take advantage of people by making phone calls and saying, you know, Grandma, I'm in jail. There's no relation. They just get people baited in. So those scams are prevalent in these communities, and just make sure that you don't give out information on the phone. You don't be responsive to that. If you think it might be your grandson or granddaughter, hang up and call them directly. And don't be prey to those who will prey upon you. We have our Chief of Security, Tim Moy, who I try to get on at least once a month to make sure that he talks a lot about the things that you just mentioned. So Tim is great. He's got a lot of experience. He's a retired member of the Sheriff's Department, 30 plus years, and he's a perfect match for the community here in Laguna Woods Village.
We agree. All right, so let's go back. Okay, when we talk about being a partnership, are you talking about partnering with communities, or maybe elaborate on your partnership?
Well, both. The law enforcement today is not the same as it was, and you have to be transparent, open, and invite in the public to better understand what we do. If somebody watches CSI Miami and thinks that represents what law enforcement is and how we function, I can tell you it's not even close.
Right.
But we have a lot of collaborative relationships with the community. One that I'm most proud of is the Interfaith Council that I spoke to about a little earlier. All the different religious faiths in the county work with the sheriff on community issues, and it's a bond and a relationship that's been built over the course of years. But one of the initiatives I'm starting is a community coalitions or community groups with members, segmented members of the community.
Okay.
One of my 501c3s that I sit on the board for is MECA. It's a multi-ethnic collaboration of community agencies, and it's aimed towards those disparate groups that may be underrepresented in services. So taking that same philosophy and having a community group or council from the Hispanic community and the Vietnamese community and the Korean community and the Black community, and just have a sounding board for the sheriff and for public safety. And so I'm working now identifying key stakeholders within those different parts of our community, and they will work with me and members of my staff to make sure that we have a mutual beneficial understanding of what each of us expects and what we can do. And what I found by having that type of collateral that's built over time, that when something or if something does go wrong, you have the relationships already established before that allows you to work the problem rather than meeting somebody for the first time.
Okay, and then whatever you find out from them and the meetings and things, do you then roll that out to the people who can then relay that to the communities?
Absolutely, and I think what's most important is our deputies do a great job of working with the community, but they don't want to be offensive to the community as well. So I also work with an LGBTQ working group, law enforcement group, and it's all about mutual understanding and mutual trust, right? How do you, so if we stop somebody who might be a member of the LGBTQ community, all our deputies want to know is how do we dialogue with them in a way that's not offensive to them, not using an inappropriate term, how to appropriately address them. And we found that that's been very beneficial for our staff. Nobody wants to hurt somebody's feelings or insult somebody, but just to say, if you have somebody in this group, this is how you can talk to them, and this is how they want to be addressed. 90% of the issues are resolved before you even start to work through the reason for the encounter.
All right, excellent. And then the jail system, I know you talked a little bit about that in your initiatives. Why don't you elaborate a little bit on that?
It's my #1 priority for our for the Sheriff's Department. If you take away all the things that we do that might be value added, patrol and investigations and the tactical teams, we really have one core mandate within the Sheriff's Department, and that's the care, custody, and control of our jails. And over the last several years, we've created a lot of initiatives that we've been able to implement. We've made a lot of improvements within the jails. We stabilized the management team that is overseeing our jail operations, and I think we've gone a long way. We haven't arrived. We always still have to be progressive and innovative and look for new ideas, but we are dealing with have dealt with a lot of the issues that might have been raised in the past. But we're still moving forward. One of the largest issues we face right now is the decline or collapse of the mental health system in California, and that's manifested into our jails. We have about 6,100 daily population in our jails. It's considered a mega jail system. And I think your viewers might be shocked to know that 25% of the population has a daily nexus to mental health treatment, 1 in 4. And it's creating a huge pressure on our jail system to make sure we're meeting the expectations of that population and treating them. So we're implementing some innovations now. We're bringing back some improvements within our jail system to make sure the mental health component is robust enough to handle the volume of those we have in our system.
Oh, that's good to hear. Excellent. Okay, so something brand new that just came out is we can now text to 911.
Yes.
How is that going to work?
Well, it's just the progression of how technology is moving forward. So text to 911 is texting obviously is not new, but the ability to text in information directly with one of our dispatchers to dispatch a call or bring emergency notification to us is somewhat new for us. So we're running out a countywide right now, rolling out the text to 911 system that will happen throughout Orange County, regardless of where you live. If you're in sheriff's jurisdiction, we have it. If you're in Irvine or any other city, it works there as well. So it's just a different way to dialogue that's beyond a verbal communication
Right.
that happens on texting. So
Okay.
you would send in information, we respond exactly the same way. We could go back and forth with information gathering, and it's the new innovation. Right now it's underutilized, but we see going forward that it might replace not the voice calls obviously, but it will take a significant portion of those calls for service that we receive via dispatch will come in through the text and 911 system.
So did you have to do a lot of changes internally to make that happen, or did you have to work with the cell carriers, or how did it work?
Well, it's almost a progression of just how cellular technology is happening. If you remember back a few years ago when you had your cell phone, if you dialed 911, it by default went to the CHP.
Oh,
And the
okay.
CHP would then have to reroute it to where they believed the call was occurring. Through technology and the ability to geolocate where those devices are, now if you were to call from your cell phone, it would come in from this location that you're calling from within Laguna Woods.
I see.
And so just technology is progressing.
Okay.
Text to 911 is it's the same thing. It's just progressed. So it's one more way that we will be able to handle calls. I could see in the future we might have FaceTime-like calling that might occur. But we do know that people they're not calling when they would have make a phone call if the text and 911 system was more robust, which is why we're moving that direction.
All right, excellent. Now, you've been a law enforcement officer for, what, 30 years?
30 years, yes.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of changes, for sure.
Yes.
What are some of the most progressive changes that you've seen?
I think the most progressive, recently is the attitude of those we're hiring. Our new hires come in with a different mindset. They're more, I think, inclusive, they're more transparent, they're more technology driven. So I think that's probably the most recent thing that I'm seeing. It's just the quality of people that we're bringing into this profession and the way they view service to the community differently. Not that we didn't, it's just we didn't have to deal with so many of the issues that are being dealt with today.
Right.
When I started in law enforcement 30 years ago, it was you went on a call, you handled it appropriately, you may make an arrest, you might give a warning, you might write a report. Well, our deputies are all things to all people now.
Right.
They're going out and dealing with the opioid crisis, they're dealing with family issues, they're dealing with children and social media, they're dealing with people being cyberbullied. All these different hats that they wear on a daily basis makes it much more difficult, I think, for them to do broad-based services in a different way.
Well, and much more training is involved, too.
There's a lot more training. We train on just about everything
Right.
that we may encounter. But I think technology is a tool to be used, but it's not the solution for what we do.
Right.
It's still a human-based business, and it has to be, because you can't write into an algorithm how to deal with one of the 10,000 different types of calls you might go on at any given time. But body-worn cameras is probably the biggest push that we are going towards.
Right.
We are moving towards field testing. Body-worn cameras have been for years, but it's a very expensive solution to put in play. The
Okay.
viewers may not know, in Laguna Woods Village, we've had in-car camera systems for 3 decades. A lot of the agencies that went to body-worn cameras went from nothing to something. They had to have a solution, and the body-worn camera was the most viable solution for them.
Oh, okay.
So we're moving towards it, but it's a very expensive solution. And so until we can get the price right, because once you buy into it, you can't buy out of it.
Right.
They're going to own you for a long time.
Right.
So we want to make sure that the storage costs are right, the technology is the right solution for us.
Okay, excellent. And what are you looking forward to doing for the next 4 years as sheriff?
I'm really, it's Sheriff Hutchins, who just retired from law enforcement, it was around Christmas, and I shared with her that when my campaign stopped, I got half my life back. When I transitioned the role of the undersheriff over to my new undersheriff, Bob Peterson, I got the other half of my life back in the workplace. And I told her, it's about Christmas time, I said, I'm really bored, there's nothing to do. And she said, enjoy it while you can, it'll change quickly. And she was not holding back. It's a very demanding job, a lot of demands outside of the office, and meeting with community groups and collaborative groups and trying to build forward.
Right.
But I will always remain inwardly focused on the department to make sure that things are being handled well back at home. So the next 4 years, I'm already starting my second campaign. You have to start early, so I'm running for sheriff again in under 3 years. So that's probably one of those. But I think really for us as an organization, my goal is to be customer service oriented. I use the term customer service oriented policing. Right, we have a clientele, they expect a high level of service, and just like when you go to the mall, you want to make sure that you get the service that you're paying for. And our deputies have bought into this construct of service.
Excellent.
Service-oriented policing. So that's the one area I really want to focus on, and also innovation in other areas where we can stay ahead of the curve in how we deliver dynamic services to the residents of Orange County.
Sounds like you're on your way. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And remember that Sheriff Don Barnes is now going to be our sheriff for the next 4 years, so watch for his campaigning as well as all of the initiatives that he has set forth. We'll be right back.